Now coming to impersonality, tradition and individual talent. Second part is impersonality. Now the concept of impersonality sprouts from the first part of the essay, that is the all pervasive importance of tradition. It means that if a writer values his past, values his tradition, he will obviously hesitate from indulging in his personal feelings and emotions. Okay, he will try to keep away his personal feelings, his personal experiences, and putting them into or throwing them into his own work of art. Further, Eliot says that till now, no poet or no writer has been interesting if he has written about his own feelings, if he has just elaborated his personal experience. Let's say I am a poet, then in order to write a good piece of art, I have to keep my passions aside. I have to keep my own emotions aside, and I have to follow the theory of impersonality. I have to be a little objective and not merely subjective. Hence, what is the raw material? The raw material is the personal emotions and feelings of the poet. What is the medium? Who is the medium? The artist or the poet becomes the medium who converts this raw material, that is the emotions, into a work of art. What is the final output? The work of art or the poem that you are reading. According to Eliot, the poet and the man are two separate entities. So any kind of criticism is always directed towards the poetry and not the poet. Okay, so if a poet is following the theory of impersonality, he will not be hurt by any type of harsh criticism, because he knows that whatever has been written for his piece of art, for his poetry, and not for or not against him. Therefore the man who suffers is a raw material. He is rough, his emotions are not refined. Okay, but the man who creates, the man who is writing a piece of art, has to be very critical. His emotions, his understanding has to be refined, it has to be polished, it has to connect with everyone, it has to be universal. Therefore, if you are in a very painful condition, you are having a bad stomach ache, and the very next day you get up and start writing that I was having a very bad day yesterday, I had a severe pain, I was feeling, I wanted to cry, my mother came and said so. You cannot write these things in a poetry, in your poem, but you have to refine this thought into something that is appealing to each and every reader. Okay, a great poet, according to Eliot, always transmutes his own feelings, transmutes his own experience into something which is universally understood, which is universally valid. That means an emotion that everybody can understand. Just like Shakespeare, he writes about jealousy, he writes about love. So Eliot explains how to write a poem. He says that the poet's mind is a receptacle which goes on storing one feeling after the other, one experience after the other. And when a right compound is formed in this way, after the solution or the mixture of a lot of emotions, a work of art is created. So this is the proper way of converting your own raw material, your own emotions into a work of art. So here you have to understand that if a poet is combining the emotion or the experience of his day one with the experience of his day three, the output will be something different from the experience of day one and day three. And this is called the novelty in art. Now, again, if the writer or the poet is combining the experience and emotions which he felt on day two and day four, then again a new work is created again a new emotion is created which is different from the raw materials that he took. Henceforth, it is very much possible, says Eliot, that a poet can write about something which he has not at all experienced. Okay, in this way, 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. The poet has never experienced 4 and 5, he has only experienced 2 and 3. But when he add two of his emotions, 2 plus 3, it becomes 5, and he was unaware of 5. Only when he combined both the experiences, a new output came out of it, and it becomes an excellent piece of art. And this Eliot, he completely discards the idea of Wordsworthian poetry, that poetry is a recollection of thoughts in tranquility, etc. He does not believe in this. Okay, so the entire concept of romantic poetry is rejected by Eliot. He says that romantic subjectivism is a trash. So now I think you must have understood the meaning of the quote, that poetry is not a turning loose of emotions. A poet cannot just keep on writing about his emotions, and it is not turning loose of emotions. Rather, it is an escape from the emotion. Okay, you have to keep apart your emotion, critically analyze your emotion and understanding, add something to it, subtract something from it, and then go on to write your poetry. Then it will be a fine work. Therefore, it is an escape from personality. The poet has to escape from his own personality in order to create a piece of writing. Hence, the more an artist is able to disassociate or transcend the limitations of his own self, the more his work will be profound, the more his work will be valid to every reader. The poets, they should, shelf, they should just do away with their temptation to follow or write about their own emotions. Uh, Eliot writes that the progress of an artist is a continual self sacrifice. He has to sacrifice his own experiences, what he has felt. It is a continual extinction of personality. Okay, he has to do away with his personality, a surrender of personal emotion. Okay, to the emotion of art. In order to understand the emotion of art, in order to create a better work of art, one has to surrender his own self, own feelings. Just like sometimes your parents must have told you, if you are एसोसिएटेड, इफ़ यू आर इन टच विथ योर सोसाइटी, आप अपने समाज के साथ जुड़े हो, तो आप कुछ गलत नहीं कर सकते हो. Similarly, Eliot also says that if a poet understands his tradition, understand his ancient writers, he will not uh, in any way have an extravagant idea about his own feelings. Okay, he will be disassociated with himself, with his subjective feelings. In this way, Eliot has connected the idea, related the idea of tradition with the idea of depersonalization or individual talent. Okay, individual talent comes out only when a person understands the tradition, and when a poet understands the tradition, he has a better understanding of the tradition. He will never put himself and his emotions on the front. A poet who is conscious of his literary tradition will always come out as an excellent poet. Okay, he will always put aside his own emotions and keep understand the bigger picture. Okay, and then only he will become successful. I believe you have understood the relationship between tradition and individual talent. Now coming to some of the criticisms hurled at Eliot himself for writing this piece of criticism. F.R. Lewis, an expert in the field of criticism, he writes that In this way, what Eliot does that he is eliminating life in its vital significance from the realm of poetry. He questions that how can a man disassociate himself, his own feelings from his work of art? That is the basic core of his writing. Only if you have felt something, only if you have experienced something, you can write about it properly. Therefore, F.R. Lewis is criticizing Eliot that your theory exclude personal feelings? How can poetry is all about emotions? You cannot dissociate one's feelings, one's emotions, and a piece of work, especially poetry. One more point that F.R. Lewis has mentioned that okay, Eliot, you have talked about raw material, you have talked about the beautiful outcome, but you haven't explained that what works upon these raw materials to turn them into a piece of art. What is the procedure of converting these raw materials into something beautiful? You have to mention that. So this is what F.R. Lewis is saying basically. Another critique, Shiv K. Kumar, and in his introduction to his work, T.S. Eliot's three essays, he has written that it is very foolish to talk about objectivity and poets together. It is impossible to accomplish total objectivity in poetry. Okay, no poet or no work of art can achieve complete transcendence. You have to include something that you have experienced. So this is what Shiv K. Kumar is saying. Okay, despite a little bit of criticism, we must not forget that this work in tradition and individual talent, it is the gospel of modern times. It is a Bible for the critics. So you cannot simply discard this entire text. Okay, this work is a in itself it's a classic of literary criticism, and I think it will stay so. My suggestion is that you must read this epoch making article at least twice in order to understand each and every line. It's very simple, not that complicated. Only same thing has been repeated one after the other. You have to just understand what is tradition and what is individual talent, and lastly, what is the relationship between the two. Both are interconnected. All right, thank you.